The moment I slid into the back seat of the Uber, a prickle of unease crawled up my spine. It wasn't just the driver. His face remained hidden in shadow under a worn baseball cap. But it was the way he gripped the steering wheel. Knuckles bone white against worn leather. His profile, stark against the dashboard glow, held an unsettling stillness, eyes fixed forward, unblinking. I cleared my throat. Hey, this is for Adam, right? Silence. The car rolled forward without a sound, tires whispering against asphalt. My phone buzzed with a notification. Your ride has been canceled. Confusion tightened my chest. I'd just gotten in. The app screen flickered, replaced by the home screen. No active ride, no driver, no destination. I started, but his unnerving stillness made my voice catch. I glanced at the rearview mirror. No reflection, just darkness behind a film of grime. The car turned onto a side street, veering away from the familiar downtown routes. Buildings shifted from brick and glass to boarded-up storefronts and empty lots. Streetlights stretched farther apart, their yellow pools swallowed by encroaching shadows. This wasn't right. I checked the app again. Still, nothing. Panic prickled at my skin. I punched in my address on Google Maps, the blue dot blinking somewhere unfamiliar, miles outside downtown. Hey, I think you're going the wrong way, I said, voice wavering. Silence met my plea. The car slowed, easing onto a narrow road lined with skeletal trees. Branches gnarled and blackened against the bruised twilight sky. I leaned forward. Stop. His hand drifted to the dashboard-mounted screen. A flicker of an unfamiliar interface, black with thin white numbers counting down. 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes. My stomach lurched. Where were we going? The counter hit 0. The car crept to a halt. Beyond the windshield, the road ended abruptly at a massive concrete wall, stretching into the darkness like a jagged scar in the night. No gates, no doors, just an impenetrable barrier. I swallowed hard. He unbuckled his seatbelt, still without a word. Then, finally, he spoke, voice raspy, almost guttural. The trip isn't over yet. My breath hitched. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, pregnant with something unseen. I reached for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. Child lock engaged. I frantically checked the app again, praying for a lifeline, for some trace of this ride ever having existed. But there was nothing, as if I had never stepped into this car at all. I need to go. My voice sounded thin, lost in the suffocating stillness. He exhaled sharply, a sigh that seemed to release tension he hadn't even realized he held. Turning the engine off plunged us into near-total darkness. Headlights extinguished, swallowed by the night. The world outside felt wrong. No wind whispered through leaves. No distant traffic hummed. No streetlights cast their amber glow. It was as if the road itself ended here. But more than that, as if reality had folded in on itself. I pressed my forehead against the window, peering past the concrete wall, searching for an edge, a crack, anything beyond its endless expanse. It wasn't just old. It looked wrong, like it had never been built, but rather existed always, eternally solid, eternally impenetrable. He moved. A creak from his door, and the cabin light flickered back on for a brief moment, just long enough to glimpse his hands pale, skeletal fingers clutching something black and slick against his worn gloves. Then, darkness again. The driver sat still, seatbelt slack, no longer looking forward, but at something beyond the wall. Another tap came from inside the car, sharp and precise, like a fingernail rapping on metal. I froze. twisting towards the passenger side window, heart hammering against my ribs. The car was empty, but I wasn't alone. Something pressed against my back, not heavy, but present. A chill seeped through my clothes, an icy breath on the nape of my neck. My fingers fumbled for the flashlight on my phone. The screen flickered weakly, then dimmed. Battery at 2%. I aimed it at the seat beside me, searching desperately for some explanation. Anything familiar in that shadowy space. Leather smooth, untouched. But the air felt wrong, thick and stagnant, like someone had been sitting there, unseen, whispering secrets against my skin. Then, from somewhere behind me, a low, rasping voice, cold as tombstones. "He wants to see you." I whipped around. The driver was still facing the wall, but his head tilted slightly now, almost listening. I couldn't make out his features in the darkness, but I saw movement in his reflection in the tinted windows, a flicker of something shifting behind him, coalescing from nothingness. My stomach churned. It wasn't him talking. The screen on the dashboard flickered back to life, that same black interface. The countdown reappeared. 0, 7. He didn't move, didn't even blink, just watched something I couldn't see. "It's almost time," he said finally, his voice devoid of emotion, like a puppet reciting lines. The voice behind me chuckled, a dry, scraping sound. "We have all the time in the world." I turned fully now, twisting in my seat, desperate for any glimpse, any clue. The back seat was empty, but I couldn't deny the oppressive presence there, like a weight settling on the air itself. The screen hit 0. He reached for the gear shift. My breath caught. This wasn't a riot anymore. This was something else entirely. "Stop!" I screamed, clawing at the window. But he ignored me. His grip tightened on the wheel, not with human strength, but with something else. The car lurched forward, tires screeching against pavement, pulling us backwards, deeper into the darkness. The wall vanished. Not dissolved, but gone, as if it had never been there at all. In its place, a tunnel yawned open, blacker than night, deeper than any pit. I glimpsed something within, formless, shifting, like liquid shadows swirling in an endless void, and it was drawing us towards it. I slammed my fist against the glass. The driver wasn't steering anymore. The wheel twitched erratically, responding to unseen hands, pulling us into oblivion. We were hurtling toward the nothingness, and I couldn't stop screaming. Then a sudden jerk, the car skidding violently sideways, tires biting at the pavement, momentum throwing me against the door. Silence. Stillness. The tunnel was gone. The wall returned, solid and unforgiving. We were back where we started. I turned to the driver, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. His sunglasses had slipped down his nose, revealing eyes that burned with an unnerving intensity not human, not alive. He looked straight ahead, past me, at something I couldn't see. His lips curled into a slow, chilling smile. "We're here," he said, voice flat, devoid of any inflection. His grip tightened on the wheel, knuckles bone white against the worn leather. My blood ran cold as I realized he wasn't looking at me at all. He was looking at something behind me, something that was now beside me. The back seat was empty, but I knew it wasn't. I felt its presence, a suffocating weight pressing against my spine, cold and hungry. The faint scent of ozone stung my nostrils, like static electricity crackling in the air. I slowly turned, my gaze fixed on the empty space beside me. Behind me, 2 sets of footprints appeared in the frost-covered pavement, starting where the car had stopped, ending right behind me. I didn't scream. I couldn't breathe. The driver chuckled again, a dry, rasping sound that echoed through my bones. He unlocked the doors, and with a click that sounded like a death knell, I was free. Free to walk into a night where nothing made sense, where reality itself felt fractured, where the darkness held secrets best left undisturbed. Free, but not alone, because something else had stepped out of the shadows with me, and it had come for me.